So, a question that I get asked a lot when I'm looking after people in their businesses: do I have to sacrifice a lot of things to achieve what I want to get rich? The answer is going to depend on you, is the truth, because what I'm willing to sacrifice versus what you are willing to sacrifice are two completely different universes. So it comes down to you. But I want to share with you some things that I have sacrificed and how that's perhaps changed, over the years, to maybe just give you some insights, and some ideas. So rewind to 2018. I remember us sitting down as a family. This was on New Year's Eve, 2018. And I remember all of us, me, Elaine, the boys, apart from Harry. I think Harry was actually already asleep. And I think I have a picture somewhere. I can't remember whether I'd taken it. Yeah, I think I took the picture. It was just, one of those sort of wide angle pictures that you can take on your iPhone. And everyone sat around on their A1 pads, like these huge, sort of easel type, pads with felt tips, pens, cutouts of, prints that we'd done, mapping out what their goals were going to be and what they were going to achieve in 2019. And we tried to do that every year. Some years, the boys are not as enthusiastic, and, some years they are, so we just roll with the punches. But Elaine and I do this religiously regardless. And, previous, to 2018 backwards, by a few years, I'd spent a good 10 years plus, over 10 years, very, very focused on my health and fitness. And not just focused, I would say obsessed. I was in the military, for a few years during that period of time. And then, we had fitness businesses, and I was sort of part of the billboard, and the advertising. But I actually probably spent more time working out and training myself than I did marketing and selling the business, in all honesty. And I got to the point anyway in 2018 of where, when we sat down to make these goals, I realised how much time I was actually spending on my own personal health and fitness. For what gain was the question that I'd sort of asked myself. And anyway, to cut a potentially long story short, I decided that 2019, I wouldn't be putting as much focus, intentional focus, and mapping out a ton of time and this sort of thing on my health and fitness. I've always been in decent shape. I've got a base level of, fitness and strength, and, always been really satisfied and happy, with the way that I looked. So I thought, what, instead, if I want the business to grow in the direction, that we were sort of mapping out, I'm going to have to put more time and effort, more thought process, and that's going to involve testing things and all sorts, So I'm going to remove the bundle of time that I've always put into my health and fitness, and instead put it into learning how to be a bit better business person. Really simple. So I made a health, fitness, and personal well-being sacrifice, at the end of 2018, because that's what felt right for me. And I told Elaine, I told the kids, this is what's going to be happening. So you're going to see me working out a little bit less, and maybe just being a bit looser, with my eating potentially, because instead, this is what I'm going to be obsessing about. This is what I'm going to be going all in on. And they're like, cool, sounds awesome. Other things that I've sacrificed. Now, I'm not saying that's right, by the way. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. And you'll probably pick up, if you've seen a few of my videos, you'll hear me say that a lot. I've always been a person that's willing to test, personal testing, because, you can take in other people's experiences, but I think until you've tried it yourself, sorry, you have to excuse me, I think I've got a bit of a cold coming on. Until you've tried it yourself, you just don't know. And this is what I'm really encouraging of for you, and for the people that we work with, and I resonate this same ideology, to our sons, the people that we spend time with. People ask me, "What do you think of this?" I'm like, "Well, like we've done that, and this is how it turned out." I said, "But it might not be the same for you." I said, "You're going to have to try it." And there's a say, not to go on too much of a side tangent, but with marketing is always a test. What worked last week, last year, 5 years ago, even today, is not necessarily going to work tomorrow, in 6 months, or 5 years' time. It just doesn't work like that, because how humans show up and receive a particular marketing message, what's going on locally, globally, for them, the economic system, it's all different every single time that message is sent out. So you have to be willing, to test something. But I think that also makes it really fun, with marketing. But anyway, 2018, health and fitness, let's just park the intensity and rely on the compounding effect that I've had over the years of, putting a lot of time, a lot of effort, into that. Other things were sacrificed. Over the years in order to put growth at the forefront of our efforts, with the business. We didn't go on any holidays, any breaks, you name it. We didn't spend a penny for about 6 years straight. And despite us seeing growth year on year, and sometimes even quarter on quarter, we still decided against spending time, effort, money, and also trying to get rid of what we saw was fit for us, this level of escapism, outside of the business, like, oh, we need a break from this. And instead, just falling in love with the process of the journey of being business owners and coaching people and guiding people, rather than always looking for Friday, always looking for the weekend, always looking forward to the next holiday or the next break away. And instead, we're focused on integrating our own psychology into the notion of, this is us. This is what we do. We don't need a break away from what we do, because we are building something that we love and appreciate and find flow with, and we don't get drained by. Maybe that's useful for you. Maybe it isn't. Maybe you're willing to sacrifice, time and money, from going on breaks and holidays and things of this nature. Maybe that is just not something you'd want to consider whatsoever. But that felt right for us. Were there some downsides at times? Absolutely. Were there some downsides to parking the idea of focusing on health and fitness and my well-being? Absolutely. And I'll get to that, in just a moment, through that personal testing that I did. But I think that's part of figuring out, what are you willing to sacrifice or not sacrifice? Until you've tried it, how do you know? How have you actually got a measurement or a gauge on what some people I experienced are very fixated on? I am not willing to sacrifice this. And I'll be like, why? Help me understand why that is. Well, for this reason and that reason. Well, have you tried it? Well, no, I just know. Okay, well, that's fine. If that's how you make your decisions. Personally, I'm a person that likes to make decisions based on my own experiences. And that's been hard for, well, at least I think it has been. I think it's been challenging for, potentially friends and family members that have wanted to give advice and insight on their own experiences, but have still gone ahead and done things anyway. It's not on purpose to try and offend anybody or upset anybody. It's just like, I love and appreciate your opinion and experience, but I'm going to have to try this one for myself. So now we've sacrificed a bunch of other things as well. The list could go on, but let me just share what the downsides or the cons were, of these two things. So let's start with health and fitness. So did I? Let's look at some obvious things like, did you put weight on? Did you become really unhealthy and really unfit? Yes, I did put weight on, but for me personally, that was never a concern. I feel very fortunate in a world of where scale weight and how people look dictates how they feel about themselves. I don't fall into that category. I never have done, and I never will. So for me, gaining weight, actually was quite exciting. I'm already quite a big chap anyway. I'm 6'2" tall, a little bit taller when I've, depending on the thickness of the soles of the shoes that I'm wearing. And I've always been quite heavy. Even when I was young, I was always, even when people used to say, you look skinny and underweight, like you're malnourished, I was over 90 kilos. And as I sit here right now recording this, I'm towards nearly 120 kilos. But you wouldn't guess that. I think it's just the way I carry the weight. So anyway, putting some weight on for me wasn't a con, but I think other people that had heard me share about, my personal sacrifice or the thing that I was putting down, saw that as like, well, you can kind of clearly see that you're not focusing on your health and fitness because you've stacked a ton of weight on. What I actually did during that time period was the bit that I was doing some training, I lent into actually trying a bit of strongman. So I learned how to do like log lifting. I learned how to carry like a yoke up and down a track. Atlas stones, I tried out because, with a little bit of extra weight, you get to leverage, some of these things. So, I kind of used it to my advantage, to be honest, and actually tried some stuff with the small amount of time that I did put into my health and fitness in 2019 to do something completely different, which is pretty cool. Other cons, did I see any downsides or detriments to my actual health? I think with I think my cardiovascular fitness probably did suffer a little bit. Was I more out of breath? Elaine, my wife, would probably tell you that maybe I snored more. For those that do snore, that you can't hear yourself, but you do upset, the room around you. So that on that front, was then my quality of sleep as good as it was when I was a little bit lighter? And maybe, no, probably not. Does that then take away? If I'm not getting as good a sleep and I am snoring and maybe disturbed, not getting as much oxygen intake or in a healthy way, is that then affecting the way my brain can function to think about, the business and helping other people? Maybe I did lose a percentage of personal performance. But it was something that I felt like I had to do. In the grand schemes of 2019, and then 2020, because I'd set the same goal again and the same sacrifice, we doubled each year. That's one thing I can say. I don't think we would have grown as much in business if I hadn't sacrificed all the extra time. I know that to be an absolute fact and truth. And this is where it comes down to personal preference for your sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice in order to maybe condense the time period or the timeline to get the things that you feel like are quite important to you? You know? So yeah, there were some cons, 100%. But in my own calculations, what I'm willing to put down and pick up and to achieve my things, that was worth it on the health and fitness side. Now, in terms of the breaks and the holidays and what have you, was that worth it? Were there some cons? I don't know whether there were any cons. Again, Elena might share that there were some. But you know what? What I did find through that time period is that instead we were putting a lot of time and effort into going on family walks, going to the beach, because we live, on the coast, on the east coast of Yorkshire, and very, very close to the beach, literally a mile away, mile or two maximum, and going out into the woods, and doing things like this, which was amazing. You know what? We love that. Did we? Because maybe there's some of you that are thinking, well, I would have been absolutely gagging, to go get some sunshine and bits and bobs like this, go abroad, because that's a big thing in the UK. Part of the British culture is that you go on your summer holidays, you go and get some sunshine, when you can, because the weather's, it's usually like it is today, pretty grey skies and, a bit chilly, no matter whether that's in the middle of summer or whether that's, during winter periods. Were there some times of where we saw holidays and thought, I wish we were getting some sun? Absolutely. Of course. Absolutely. But again, that small bit of sacrifice, because we would then justify our choices and solidify them by saying, well, 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, however long the holiday was, is it worth the money, number one? And then is it worth taking that period of time out of the business? Because it's the ramp up towards the holiday, the actual holiday itself, and then the ramp off. So it ends up being more like a month of where you're spending time and effort getting ready for a break. And then what we've found, having the boys, is that actually, and this is I would say a fairly common saying amongst parents that go on holiday with their kids. Not that we don't love our children, we absolutely do. But sometimes by the time you've travelled back at the end of the holiday, you feel like you need a holiday from your holiday, because it takes a lot out of you when you've got little ones and, they get tired in the car and they need certain things that you've got to attend to. It can take a lot out of you, and you lose sleep, and then sleep patterns are thrown off and all this sort of thing. So, we ended up justifying why we'd chosen to take such a long hiatus away from, going abroad and holidays and breaks and things of this nature with some of these things that we'd already sort of recognised. So maybe this helps you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're thinking, are there things that I need to sacrifice in order to achieve my goals? And you can see it everywhere. You can see people share the things that people talk about sacrifice. You've got to sacrifice, stuff to get what you want. Do I believe that to be true? From my own assessment, yes. Will it be true for everybody? Maybe not. Maybe what someone, maybe you, is already doing is actually the cleanest path, the truest path, to get what you want to achieve. Or maybe you're an individual that needs to cut out a lot of things, stop a lot of things, halt a lot of behaviours, change a lot of habits in order to get what you want and what you want to achieve. So whichever end of the spectrum, or whether you sit somewhere in the middle, it's going to take personal assessment and personal realisation, to figure out what is or isn't right for you. That's what I would suggest. Take some time to think about that. Take some honest, calm, peaceful sit-down time to reflect on how you are currently spending your time, your efforts, your brain power, because all of that is finite. That's the thing that you've got to remember. You only have a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy each day, a certain amount of time each day, but also through the grand scape of your life, you only have a certain amount of that. So how are you going to spend it if you do have goals, things that you want to achieve for yourself? Take an honest, what's it called? Like lay of the land. And then ask yourself, are these the things that I want to be doing? Is that going to get me to where I want to be in the long term? Because by the time you've broken down all of the tiny little things, one of my favourite words at the minute is minutia. Once you've got into the minutia of all those little things, is the compounding effect of all of those little things, is that going to get me to where I want to be? Because that's what we've got to think about. It's not grand gestures, it's not big moves that get you what you want. It's all of the tiny things added up over a period of time. That's what ends up creating a person, the life that they have, the business, the relationships, whatever it might be, that you're pushing towards. All right. Have a good one. I'll see you soon.